When we first started our digital nomad family lifestyle, I made the assumption that each place we'd visit would essentially involve landing, living, and leaving. But having experienced our slow travel lifestyle for now over 2 years, living in 9 different homes for periods from 1 to 5 months each, I can say I was definitely wrong. There are actually 7 distinct phases to this slow travel lifestyle, and understanding these phases is going to help you dramatically in planning your life, and particularly your productive work amidst your travels. What I'm sharing with you today is drawn from the workspace organization element of the Freedom Evolution method. Because if your ambition is to be location independent, able to travel and work from anywhere, then your travel planning is a key part of ensuring you're setting up realistic expectations for yourself, for your team, for your clients, while being able to manage your productivity. Now, one of the most common mistakes that many novice location-independent explorers make is underestimating the impact of transitions. Hopping from place to place to place every few days or weeks is almost certainly going to lead to travel burnout, which I've personally experienced back in my 20s, and it wasn't much fun. That's why I'm a super fan for slow traveling, or what I like to refer to as a slow mad lifestyle. But even as a slow mad, understanding the phases that you'll experience with every new place you visit can create a significantly better experience for yourself and your travel partners. Now, for me, that's my honey and my pumpkin. That's why let me walk you through the 7 phases of slow travel to help you plan your next or first transition with a bit more grace. Phase number 1, landing and unpacking. This takes us roughly 2 days. Now, if you're a carry-on only traveler, you might be scoffing when I say this, saying, Erin, I can pack and unpack in less than an hour. And that might be true, but that's not the case for all of us. Traveling with kids involves a little bit more stuff, so it typically takes us about 1 day to unpack all of our things. But that also includes reorganizing the space we're moving into to work better for us. Seriously, if we're gonna spend weeks or months in a home, then I want it to work. So I'm gonna rearrange some of the furniture, the items in the cabinets, other small details to make them functional for our lives and reduce some of the friction of our day-to-day living. I often will pack away in closets some items that hosts leave around that just aren't useful to us. And I additionally make a list of the items that are missing, but essential for our day-to-day. For instance, we often need more hangers than are provided, or maybe a couple of small kitchen items that we use constantly, but haven't been provided, like measuring spoons or a dish drainer. So making a list and doing that quick shop to fill in those gaps, that's all part of this phase 2. This also includes the big grocery shop that happens right after landing. I take stock of what is or isn't already in the pantry and then make a shopping list based on our family's staples, and then figure out where all that food's gonna get stored, because it's astonishing to me how many vacation rentals have filled up all of the available space in the cupboards with random stuff, and there's just not much room for real food. So yes, this is when I'm particularly grateful for my professional organizing skills. But really, this isn't hard. It just takes a little bit of time, attention, and thought. Which brings us to phase number 2, setting up life. And this takes roughly 1 to 3 days. Getting to know your new home just takes a little bit of time, figuring out how the space itself is going to have an impact on your personal or family routines. For instance, our routines as a family change significantly depending on whether there's 1 or 2 bathrooms in a home. Adjusting and finding your new normal in this new space, it's just going to take a couple of days of experimentation and figuring out what works. Additionally, this phase is also when we're setting up some of our basic life services. For instance, finding the local library and figuring out if we can get a library card. Determining how we'll be able to receive mail in this new place. Usually Amazon packages or care packages from family. We're also introducing our pumpkin to her new nanny or childcare situation. Now, if we're lucky, our planned childcare solution just works and we roll forward. But this can often take up to a week of testing or exploring alternatives if necessary, so be aware. Usually, I grant myself the grace of around 3 to 4 days from arrival before I plan to get back to work. Now, I might respond to messages from my team during that time, but I pretty much set expectations for everyone, team members, clients, etc., that I'm not going to be available during this period of time, which gives me the space to just get our family settled and comfortable. Then, in phase 3, the real fun starts to begin. This is when we get to know the neighborhood. I find that this lasts usually around 1 to 2 weeks as we're starting to explore the area closest to us, discovering the different shops, the parks, the playgrounds, the beautiful places to walk, and more. This phase is all about learning the area that's just beyond your immediate backyard. Where do the different streets go? Really starting to feel more grounded in this new place. Now, I love this phase because it's less about the bustle of making life functional and more about just enjoying and exploring the new neighborhood you're in. This is also when I start getting back into my work and I use the PULSE system, which I teach in the vision and direction element of the Freedom Evolution method, to start planning and making the transition back into work a little more graceful. Phase 4 is exploring. And it's kind of an expansion of phase 3 because this is when you start truly exploring and playing, not just in your immediate neighborhood, but in the whole city or area that you've landed in. This is the bulk of our visit and the time that always feels like it goes by too fast. This is when we're planning our day trips to museums or afternoons on a particular beach, exploring a boardwalk. This is the time that's full of hikes and tours and weekend road trips to nearby towns. Basically, this phase is why all the other phases are worth doing. However, eventually we start nearing the end and move on to phase number 5, wrapping up. This typically starts about 2 weeks before our planned departure day. This is when we start figuring out about which items are going to come with us and what we're going to donate or sell on Facebook Marketplace. And many times we donate old toys back into the community before we leave, only keeping the most special or favorite and packable ones. This is when we make sure all of our library books get returned, we make plans for any special gifts for our hosts or new friends, and when we confirm that all logistics for our upcoming travel are locked into place, like transport to the airport and more. Then we get to phase number 6, packing up. Now, initially, I started this process about 3 days before departure. Now it takes us about 24 to 36 hours to get everything broken down and into bags and packed into our car. But this is a pretty intense period, so I do everything I can to make sure that my work is complete ahead of this phase so I can purely focus on getting us packed and out the door on time. Finally, phase number 7 is travel day. We do as much as we can to leave the minimum number of tasks for travel day. We've learned that a noon departure is easiest for us, so we usually negotiate a late departure time with our hosts in advance whenever possible. And typically they're pretty understanding and accommodating. So on travel day, the focus is, yes, on getting all of our stuff packed up and out, but it's also on moving many of those items back that I moved around when we arrived. Now, I usually take videos or photos when we arrive so I can try to put things back at least roughly where they were prior. It's a little bit of thoughtfulness, but I do think it's one of the reasons why every single host we've had has said very genuinely that they would be delighted to have us back. And with that, we're off on our next adventure. I hope that learning these 7 phases of slow travel will inspire you to start planning your next adventure and help you get a better sense for how to navigate the transitions in this lifestyle like a pro, leaving yourself enough buffer to make the transition so much easier and less stressful. So if you're ready to learn more about how we live full-time in Airbnbs while saving on average 49% off the published nightly rates, then hop on over to chosencourse.com/Airbnb and get access to the awesome video training that I've made that teaches you the exact system we've been using. maybe it'll save you a bunch of money on your next location-independent adventure. This is your life, freedom lover. Let's make it a great one.